Hello, Britzoners.
Hey, Putri, how's it going?
Hi. Hi, Danny.
Have you prayed at Maghrib right now?
Yes, of course I have.
Yeah, I do. Me
Yeah.
too.
Well, thank you for being here, Danny.
Yeah, I just
How
been
are
here.
you?
You're welcome. I'm fine. How about you?
I'm
How are you?
great.
Yeah, I'm great too.
Thank you for
Thank
asking.
you. You are welcome, Putri.
Well, do you know about today's topic, Danny?
Oh, just wait. I just, I just waited. Just wait a second.
Okay.
Okay, a second. Just
Okay, you
read
can check
about.
our Instagram.
Hi, Britzoners.
Wait up.
Hi, Britzoners.
Hello.
Today is conquering your scholarship interview.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Now this is what I read it ever seen before, I saw it on Instagram. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Denny.
you're welcome.
Hi, Britzoners. Hi, everyone. Hello. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello, Britzoners. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Britzone online class. And yeah, as usual, I would like to say thank you so much for joining our class tonight. And just information, this is the third episode of Wednesday class series. Before we talk about IELTS speaking, and also the second episode, the last week, we talked about motivation letter. So tonight we are going to discuss about interview scholarship. And yeah, before start the class, probably we should give the other participant a few more minutes to join in. Hello, Britzoners. How was your day? Hello.
Very impressed.
Yeah, Irham. Hello, Irham.
Hi, Danny. Thank you.
Okay, so new member, please raise your hand, guys. Are there any new member here for the first time joining Britzone online class?
Come on, guys. Raise your
Sito.
hand.
Okay,
Oh,
Sito. Hello,
Shito.
Sito. Hello, Mr.
Hi
Sito.
there, how are you today?
Oh, I'm good. So, where are you from, Sito? Sito.
I'm in Ketapang, West Kalimantan.
Oh, Ketapang, right? West Kalimantan. Wow.
Yep,
Thank you.
West
Thank you,
Kalimantan.
Ketapang. And
It's so far
also,
away.
we have Tia. Hello, Tia.
Which mean is a West Borneo.
Hi there.
Borneo as West Kalimantan.
Uh, Ketapang
Pardon?
is West Kalimantan, or?
Yeah, Ketapang is in West Kalimantan.
Okay. It's so far from Jakarta, right?
Indeed, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sito. And also we have Tia. Hey, Tia.
Hey, how's it going?
Wow, I'm great. How about you?
Yeah, not bad, thanks. Thanks
Okay.
for
So
organizing this.
where are you from, Tia?
I'm from Jakarta originally, but I'm currently residing in Bali.
Oh, okay. So where do you know Britzone?
Um, I was sent the information through or by Sandy from PDVL. That's in asking him about scholarship opportunities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you, Tia. And also we have. Okay, so raise your hand, please. New member. Yeah, okay. Just information during coronavirus pandemic, not only member from Jabodetabek, but also member out of the town. I mean, out of Jakarta, like Bali, and also Kalimantan, Surabaya, and also Bandung. So thank you so much for your support, guys. Okay. Again, welcome to Britzone. And before start the class, we have some announcement. Please, Zoom host. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, hi fellow Britzoners. Yeah, for new member and old member, Britzone is the largest English community in Jakarta. So if you have friends, if you have family who wants to learning English together with us, please join Britzone. And during coronavirus pandemic, we moved to daring or online. Yeah, before in Kemendikbud, and during coronavirus pandemic, we moved to online or daring via Zoom. Okay, next. About all the material of English and also voluntary. Next, and also English education, of course. Yeah, every week we have three classes. Yeah, for the first one is Britzone Speaking Academy on Thursdays, start at 7 p.m. And we focus on public speaking, such as speech, debate, interview, and etc. And yeah, the second class of Britzone is Britzone Betterment series, like tonight on Wednesday, start at 7 p.m. And we focus for skill such as listening, reading, writing, and also speaking. And the last class of Britzone is Britzone Fun Day. Yeah. So if you want to learning English with fun, you can join our community on Saturdays, start at 11 a.m. Brings various topics for weekly discussions. Yeah. So we have Britzone social media. Don't forget to follow our Instagram, Britzone ID, and also Facebook Britzone. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, Britzone English Community. So if you cannot join the class, you can watch our class on the YouTube. And also the last, we have um, website, yeah, website britzone.id. Yeah. Um, for support our Britzone, yeah, you can see on the slide we have Busy Mart and Busy Merge, and you can check uh, on the Instagram Busy Merge, and you can see on the slide our merchandise. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to buy, you can follow our Instagram Britzone merch and also our WhatsApp number on the slide. Yeah, our support, yeah, is Library of Education and Culture Ministry. And once again, we said before coronavirus pandemic, on Britzone in Kemendikbud Library, I mean, and during pandemic we moved to online. So if you want to join our class, you can registration before to join our English community. Yeah, the last is after class tradition with taking pictures and give us your feedback at this link. And yeah, that's all. And so for the next announcement, take over to Putri. Hello, Putri.
Hello. Danny, thank you so much for the announcement about Britzone. Now I have another remarkable announcement that I'd like to share to all of you Britzoners. Well, here it is. Well, as you guys know, as a nonprofit organization, Britzone has to run the fund to support our activities. So, in order to contribute to support us, you can buy our merchandises. And I'm so proud to announce that we have new merchandises. We have new arrival merchandises. We have Britzone t-shirt. It's a brand new Britzone t-shirt. So the color is maroon and the price is only 90K. So yeah, we also have the gray as the color. And also we have the antibacterial 3-ply Britzone mask. The price is only 29K. And we have a time limited design for Britzone lanyard. It only costs you for 25K. So please, you can support us by buying our merchandises, and you can also look more awesome if you join Britzone's classes by wearing our merchandises. Well, how to buy our merchandises? You can contact us. You can contact every company in Britzone. You can DM us, or you can follow at Britzone Merch. And yeah, you can DM them and say, oh my God, I would like to buy 10 pieces of Britzone t-shirts, or I would like to buy 50 Britzone masks to protect me from the viruses. You can do that. Okay, so um, spend your money by where by buying these merchandises because it's so worth it. All right, I think that's all for me. I will send you the contact from our entrepreneur division so that you can contact them and directly order so many merchandises as you wish for. All right, that's all from me. Go back to you, Danny.
Okay, thank you so much, Putri and Britzoners. Once again, don't forget to buy our merchandise. Contact our committee of the Britzone. Thank you, Putri. Okay, so
Pleasure.
now we are going to discuss about interview scholarship, and our conductor is really special. Hello, Bang Ersan.
Hello, Danny. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Bang Ersan, how are you?
Good. How are you? I'm good.
Okay. So thank you so much, Bang Ersan, for your time. So Bang Ersan, he is our AAS Awardee, and also he is associate translator at Sekretariat Kabinet Republik Indonesia. So once again, give applause, guys, for our conductor.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Bang Ersan. You turn, please.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm so glad that Danny invited me to this wonderful event. So as I said earlier to some of the guys here, I really love voluntarily activities, including this one. Especially, this is actually related to English. So when I was I invited and asked by Danny to give to share with you about scholarship interviews. So I said like, oh, that would be really exciting because I think scholarship interview is something that some people find it really difficult. So, and I happen to have some experiences in teaching my colleagues about scholarship interviews. So tonight it's not actually a class, as you know that it's going to be a lot of discussion. Okay, it's going to be a static session. But before we discuss, before you can ask me a question about interview. I'm gonna give you some tips on how to give the scholarship interview. Some general knowledge about what is a scholarship interview and what are the challenges and stuff like that. So now let me show my presentation, the materials for tonight. Okay, so have you seen my screen? Yeah. Okay. Is it?
Yes, we have.
Yes.
Yeah. So before we move on, so let me introduce myself first. My name is Muhammad Ersan Pamungkas. You can call me Ersan. As Danny said, I'm currently a translator at Kabinet Sekretariat of the Republic of Indonesia, and I graduated from Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia as Sastra English, English literature, and then I continued my master degree at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, and in 2013, I did my doctorate degree in linguistics with a specialization in translation, and I graduated last year. So, and this is my experience. I currently work, as I said earlier, I currently work at Sekretariat Kabinet, and also I work as a freelance translator at UOB Indonesia. And before that, I worked for Kemensetnek and also Tempo English as a translator as well. And I also I was an English teacher at LIA. So that's a little bit of my work experience because as Indonesians say, tak kenal maka tak sayang. So now you know a little bit about me. Okay, so now let's move on to the real, to the most important topic of tonight. So I'm sure that all of you here, I mean, all of us here want to get a scholarship, right? I mean, especially when it comes to scholarship to get interview, right? I mean, who doesn't want to get scholarship, right? Everybody wants to get a scholarship. But then, you know, if you want to get a scholarship, one of the most difficult things, one of the most decisive factors that will decide whether you get a scholarship or not is the interview, right? So no matter how prepared you are, when for example, when you fill out the form, for example, or when you do a lot of preparation, but that if you are not successful in the interview, then you won't get a scholarship. Okay, so this is exactly why interview is actually the most important part of the scholarship application, right? And in scholarship interview itself, there are actually 3 points. There are 3 main important points. There are 3 challenges that you have to pay attention to, right? Because first, the language. Okay, so second, the content. Third is the psychological aspect. So these are, in my opinion, the 3 biggest challenges in interview scholarship. Once again, the language, the content, and the psychological aspect. So what does it mean by the language? Okay, so the language. The problem with the language is that when you apply for a scholarship to study abroad, for example, you have to speak English, right? You have to go interview with English, right? So it won't be a problem if the interview is actually conducted in Indonesian, right? But the problem is that you have to speak English. And for most of us, English is actually not our first language, right? My first language is Sundanese, for example. My second language is Indonesian, and English is actually my third language. For me, this is a foreign language. And for most Indonesian, English is actually a foreign language. So this is a big problem, right? The language. So this is why many people are so scared, are nervous, are frustrated about the interview because it's going to be in English, right? But then, even if you have to interview in Bahasa Indonesia, for example, even if we speak Bahasa Indonesia, we still get nervous, right? Can you imagine if we have to do that in English? So that it's a double nervous, exactly. So, and then not only English, right? The English that you're going to use in the interview is not English like what's your name and then where do you come from, blah blah blah. No, it's a high level of language because because this is a scholarship, right? People, the interviewers will see you as a person, as a candidate who have the qualification. So they're not going to ask you like, so what's your hobby? Reading. Okay, next. What's your dream? No, it's going to be like, tell me about yourself. What's your opinion on that? Or do you think blah, blah, blah? So it's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of argument. So this is exactly why the language that's going to be used is a high level of English, a high level of language. And then the third biggest challenge in the language is that mostly, I mean, you know, there are a big chance that you'll be interviewed by a native speaker, right? And then the fact that you're going to have native speaker asking you question will probably make you nervous, right? Because, oh my God, there's an American waiting asking you questions. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a problem. And then another problem is that sometimes we can, you know, some people have problem listening, right? For example, you know, some people have problem listening to the British accent, to the Australian accents, or maybe to Indian accents. So this is a big problem, right? So this is exactly why the language is one of the biggest challenge for you, for everybody, for all of us, when we when we have an interview scholarship, right? So that's the first language that you have to remember. I hope that by knowing the challenges, you know how to solve them, right? So first is actually the language, and then but bear in mind, language is important, of course. You're going to use the language to answer questions, to impress them, but then this is not the only one, right? When you go inside a room for interview, for example, when you have the interview or scholarship, this is not only about showing your language, because this is not an IELTS speaking test, this is not a language class, but this is actually to convince interviewers that, okay, I'm the right guy, I deserve to get a scholarship, right? So language is important, but this is not the only one, right? Don't be trapped by thinking that, misalkan, for example, tomorrow, next week, for example, you're going to have the interview, but then the only preparation that you make is language. You keep practicing English and that's it. No, this is not the only one. And some of my students were actually, they mistakenly thought that the only preparation that they have to make before the interview is the language. That's wrong, right? It's the only one. So what's the second one? What's the second challenge that you have to prepare for the scholarship? Okay, so this one, don't be too caught up with the language aspect only. This is not the only one, right? The second one is the content. Remember, scholarship interview is totally different from IELTS interview. This is not a test. This is not something to test your language only, no. But then the most important thing is that you have to be ready with the question. You have to be ready with any questions. And the question can be really unpredictable, right? If I can share my experience, one of the questions that I remember when I was applying for a master degree at the time back in 2010. So one of the interviewer asked me, "What's your favorite? What are you gonna do when you have homesick?" Right. So I was surprised by that because I wasn't actually prepared for that kind of question. But then again, I have to answer the question, right? And then some of my friends told me that they also received the so-called trivial questions like, "Are you married?" or "What do you think about Australia?" Blah blah blah. So you have to be ready with any question, right? So this is exactly the content. You have to be ready with any possibilities, right? And then you have to convince them. You have to impress them. Once again, you are applying for a scholarship. You have to convince them, "Hey, I'm the right guy. I'm the right candidate." So you have to, for example, when they ask you a question, you have to be confident. You have to, you trust yourself that, okay, I'm the guy, I know your question. I can answer your question and stuff like that, right? So this is not about, so this is exactly why what I'm saying by the content here is that, for example, when you apply for law, for example, you have to know everything, not really everything. You have to know your field, for example. When I apply for the scholarship, I applied for translation study. So I'm a translator. I was a translator, and I've been a translator when I applied for the scholarship. So they asked me question about the language. They asked me question about translation, right? So when you, for example, want to apply in, let's say, IT, for example, you have to know the latest development of IT. You have to know what's new in IT, for example. And then if you apply for journalism, for example, you have to know, can you tell us about the challenge of journalism in Indonesia, blah, blah, blah. So you have to know them. Like, how can you apply for a scholarship if you don't know your own field, for example, right? And then, for example, Danny is a reporter and MC, for example. They will ask you a question, for example, like, can you tell us about the challenge of becoming a journalist in Indonesia, for example? Do you think journalists play important role in Indonesian democracy? Blah, blah, blah. So you have to be ready for that, right? The content. So this is exactly why I always put emphasis on the content, right? If you think that your English is not that good, for example, if you think that you still make grammatical mistake, for example, well, that's okay if you know the content. Remember, they're not looking for English teachers. They're looking for people of all fields, right? That's the point. And then not important is like you have to sell yourself. What I'm saying by sell yourself, like, I'm the guy. Come on, give me the scholarship. I can. You won't regret if you give me scholarship. So this is exactly what I mean by selling yourself, right? you can ask any question, you can impress them, and then you can tell the things that, oh, really, and something like that, right? So in my case, for example, because the two interviewers who asked me didn't know about language, for example, I told them about this is the challenge of becoming a translator for the government and blah blah blah. So they asked me question that, oh, okay, really, something like that. So this is a challenge. How you can actually tell them new things, new information, right? So what's the key? Read books, get prepared, and then know your field, for example. So, for example, do not apply, for example, for legal study if you don't know anything about law. That will be a disaster, right? So if you want to apply, for example, in, let's say, you apply for a scholarship to study, for example, biology, for example, you have to know a lot about biology, right? If you go inside the interview room, but you don't know anything about your major, that's gonna be a disaster, right? So the preparation is actually the content itself. So the language is the first one. The second one is the content. But if I can choose, which one is actually more important, the language or the content? If I have to choose, the content is slightly more important. Let's say the content is 60%, the language is 40%, right? So if I were the interviewers, I wouldn't assess a candidate based on the language only. No, I would assess based on the answers. That's okay. For example, they will understand that you're not a native speaker of English, you're Indonesian. So if you make any mistakes, some grammatical mistake, but then in the grammar, for example, but then it's still understandable, they will understand that, right? Because sometimes foreigners or bule they are more tolerant about our language, right? No, you can speak Indonesian, you can speak Japanese, so English is actually your third language. So it doesn't have to be perfect. And most importantly, do not ever try to speak like a native speaker. No, you will never ever speak like American. You will never ever speak like an Australian. You always speak with Indonesian accent, with Japanese accent, with Sudanese accent, and that's completely okay, right? Remember, the content is more important than the language. And then the third one is psychological aspect, of course, right? Everything in this world is always related to our state of mind, right? Including interview. Interview is actually the most important part of a long scholarship process, right? So of course, you gotta get nervous. They will be under pressure. Why do I have to get the scholarship? I really have to get the scholarship. And then you're not familiar with the setting, for example. Oh my God, the room is so cold, and for example, and then there's a big room, for example, it's in a big building, okay, and stuff like, and then the expectation. Oh my God, I'm 28 or I'm 30 already. I need to get a scholarship. And my parents want me to get a scholarship. Blah blah. So those are the psychological aspect that will actually contribute to your performance, right? So like for example, you are doing well in your language. Your English is actually good, and then you can answer the question. But on the D-Day, for example, on the day of the interview, you get nervous. You are shaking, for example. You are frustrated. You are sick, for example. You're not going to do well, right? So you have to prepare for the psychological aspect. How? Preparation, right? What I'm saying by preparation is that, of course, small thing. Do not come late, for example. If you're late and then you're still like catching breath, for example, I'm sorry. No, it's gonna be hopeless, right? So making preparation and also have breakfast, for example. If you have the interview in the morning and then had a good night sleep the night before, right? Don't stay up late, for example, because again, no matter how good you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how intelligent you are, if you are ill on the day, for example, you're not going to be make it, right? And that's the same thing with IELTS, for example. This is also something that I always remind my students, right? If you want to take IELTS test, for example, do not study on the night before the test. Do not read any books, okay? Watch a funny movie and listen to your favorite song and then sleep well and stuff like that. So do not overload your brain on the night before the interview or the test. So this is so good preparation is actually the key, right? So the language is important, the content is more important, but another thing is that you have to stay fit mentally, psychologically, right? Don't be under stress, don't be under too much stress. I mean, being stressed out is human, right? Being nervous is okay. We are human, right? Who doesn't get nervous, by the way? Everybody gets nervous. Even when I was I still remember that on the day when I came into the room, I was like, I was shaking, I was sweaty. That's normal, but as long as you can control yourself, that's okay, right? So once again, there are actually 3 challenges that you have to bear in mind: the language, okay, English in this case. This is a high level of language, but then the content, which I believe is more important. So you have to focus more on the content and then the language, and of course, sorry, this is a typo, psychological aspect. Okay, this is the psychological aspect is actually more also important. So that's the key, right? So that this is the those are the 3 biggest challenges when you if you want to prepare for the interview. Okay, so now this is so interview is actually an oral form of communication. So what I'm saying is like, I still remember what some of my students, because I usually teach my colleagues in my institution that, so most of the time they prepare the questions, they prepare the answers, and then they memorize the questions, right? So this is totally not recommended, right? So when you have an interview, you talk to them, you speak to them, you ask questions. Sometimes they will ask, when they ask you one question, for example, and then you answer the question, they will give you a follow-up question, just like when you talk to your friends, right? We never say like, okay, what's your name? Hey, where do you live? No, it's always like, back and forth, something like that, right? So this is exactly why I always remind my student not to memorize things, right? So this is so this one, for example, I give you a case of some of my students who actually work for the government. Jadi, they do not literally test your duties or description for Indonesian into English. For example, like this, if you work for a government, for example, or an institution, for example, every government institutions or every company has these duties and tasks, and then and they're written in Indonesian, right? And some of my students translate those tasks and duties, and then they memorize that, and then they prepare the those things for the interview. No, right? So if you, for example, if you have to remember some of the things, for example, about let's say laws or whatever, just remember the points, right? But then so those the points, and then when you make those points, and then when they ask you questions, so you can use your own words, right? So my point is like, do not translate and do not memorize word by word, for example. Okay, and then for example, okay, this is some of the things that I use also as an example of some of my students. Like, for example, there are some phrases, they are so Indonesian. For example, this one, in government institution, they have what is called izin prakarsa. Izin prakarsa, it's something that is a buzzword in so many government institutions, right? So if you, for example, find, for example, not only izin prakarsa, pilkada, for example, you have to explain what is pilkada, for example. Well, pilkada is a regional elections, blah blah blah, right? So my point is that if in your field, for example, there's so many technical jargons, right? So for example, you have to remember some of the most important points. For example, in Danny's case, for example, journalism, for example, what is framing, for example, what is headline, right? Like small things like that. Okay, what is for example, what is, for example, simultaneous election? So those are the buzzwords that we use today. And then now we have hoax, for example, right? Remember the definitions of hoax in Indonesian setting. It's now different. Hoax itu something that is, if you go to the state, for example, in the United States, like, they don't call it hoax, they call it fake news, for example, right? Because hoax is now a very Indonesian word, for example. So if you know something, for example, in Indonesian, you have to check it again. Does it have the same meaning in English? Something like that, right? So this is why the keywords in my field, for example, or in the field that I'm going to apply, for example, what are the keywords? What are the most important, concept, or what are the most popular topics, for example, like for example, corona, for example, now let's use the example of COVID-19 pandemic, for example. You have to know what is PSBB, for example. You cannot translate that. PSBB is for example, PSBB is a policy that restrict the people's movement, something like that, right? So these are some of the keywords that you have to you have to know very well in your own field, for example. So these are just example that I use in my institution, because you know what, the interviewers might not have the similar background knowledge with the one you have. Remember, in my case, for example, one of the interviewers is actually an Australian. Or maybe in your case, for example, it can be Indonesian, it can be an American, it can be Singaporean, for example. If you explain a lot of things to Singaporean, they probably do not know what it means. For example, what is PSBB? Nah, something like that, right? So try to put your shoes in other fields. So if you speak English, you think globally, you speak to a global audience. That's the point. You don't speak to Indonesian, you speak to foreigners with different knowledge, with different background, something like that, right? So for example, can you tell me about the policy of tackling corona pandemic? You can answer like this. Well, we have the PSBB policy. Oh, sorry, what is PSBB? Nah, something like that, right? So this is like, in Indonesian, for example, PSBB stands for apa, for example, and then you explain, well, it's kind of different from lockdown. So those are the things that you have to remember. Remember, when we talk to Indonesian, for example, we don't have to explain what is PSBB. No, we don't have to, right? Indonesian know PSBB, right? But if you talk to a Japanese, they don't know what is PSBB, but it's different from like the lockdown, by the way, right? So my point is that this is actually not only for the interviewers itself, but when you talk to foreigners, one of the biggest problem that we have is that we don't, when we speak English to an American, for example, we also have to think about not only the language itself, but the background. Every speaker from different countries does not only speak different languages, but they also have different language backgrounds, right? We know a concept here about hoax, about PSBB, about Pilkada, about a lot of things, but those are the things that maybe the people in South Africa, maybe they're not familiar with that, right? So this is exactly, language is just language is a medium, but in the real conversation, it's all about culture, it's all about politics, it's all about differences in habits, for example, right? So, and that's the same case with the interview, right? So you remember that one of them is a foreigner. So in some cases, you have to explain, you have to be explicit, something like that, okay? So, this again, interview is an oral form of communication. Speak to the interviewers, right? So maybe some of you already know about the common question interview, right? But I'm going to show you some of the common questions that you will probably receive during an interview. Can you tell us about yourself? This is a very common, and I'm sure that maybe 90% of chances that you're going to have this question about yourself. This is important, right? How can they give you a scholarship if you don't tell them about who you are, right? But remember, this is a broad question, right? But it doesn't mean that you can talk anything, right? So if I were you, I would start with name, of course, with age, for example, and then with just I said earlier, I talk about my educational background, and then my work experience and something like that, and then those are the four things that you have to tell. Don't give your, for example, your address. I live on Jalan blah 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 number. No, that you don't have to tell them, right? It's actually name, age, for example, or I live in. That's okay. Yeah, I live in Jakarta. That's it. You don't have to. I live in Jalan what, Gang whatever, something like that, right? So tell me about yourself. Limit yourself to the main important points that you think important for them. Tell me about your greatest strength. This is the time for you to be a snob, right? This is a time for you to be sombong in a good way, right? So it's not about time to merendah. Oh no, I know I'm just an ordinary person. I don't have any strength. No, you have to find your strength, right? Even though you don't know, even though you're not really sure about your strength, just think about it. For example, and even simple things like maybe you didn't realize before, like I'm a good leader. That's okay. If you think that you're a good leader, right? I'm a diligent person. For example, I'm a sociable person. I can get along with people, right? I can work under pressure. That's okay. But I don't recommend you to lie. What I'm saying by here, like, if you think that you're not a good leader, but you tell them you're a good leader, I don't think that's a good one, right? But then do not ever think that you don't have any greatest strength. Everybody has your greatest strength. Everybody has their own greatest strength, right? So think about it, right? Maybe if you have time after this event, just think about one of your greatest strength, and just stick to that, okay? So just one is okay. If you have two, that's okay. And then what is your great weaknesses? Of course, nobody's perfect. Don't say, oh, no, I have no weaknesses. No, ever say that. For example, sometimes I can be lazy, for example, you can tell that, or sometimes I can get emotional, right? This is human, right? Because they will see you as a human being, right? They will see you as a person who has weaknesses and strength, which is okay, right? For example, oh, I have a problem because I stutter bata-bata, for example, when I speak, that's okay. So remember, think about that, right? And then tell me about your leadership experience. When we talk about leadership experience, it doesn't mean that you should be a leader of a political party. No. For example, I used to become a head of this community. For example, I used to become the head of this team, whatever, or maybe just small. For example, my team and I, blah blah blah. So leadership is actually this. Leadership here is actually leadership in the broad sense, right? Do not think about being a leader in a company or being a leader in a political party. Why? Who do you look up to? Who's your role model? This might sound not. Why do we have to answer this question? This is important. Why? Because the person you adore, the person you admire, say something about you. For example, let's say if Danny say, "Who do you like to?" Who? If I ask Danny, for example, who do you look up to? Who is your role model? And then she said, like, I love Pramudi Anantatur, for example. Oh, again, he's a reader, right? He's a reader. He loves reading. He loves history, sometimes, because it actually tells you about who you are, right? It doesn't mean that well, I love a singer. That's okay, but but bear in mind, because as I said earlier, one question will be followed up by another question, right? For example, why do you look up to him? Why do you admire him? So answer the question with a logical reason, not, well, because she's pretty, that's it. No, right? Because she has a great for example, musicality, she's inspiring, or her life story is inspiring and stuff like that, right? Now, where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years? This question, in my opinion, is also important. Why? Because if you can answer this question, they will know that you have a plan. They will know that you are a person with a good planning. If your answer like, I don't know, I'm not really sure where I see myself. No, this is not a good one, right? Because again, they're looking for a candidate who has a great vision ahead, right? So what I'm saying, like, okay, in the next 5 years, I want to become a better journalist. I want to become an international journalist. I want to become, for example, let's say an editor-in-chief, blah, blah, blah. This is your dream, right? So you have a goal, you have a dream, you have an inspiration, right? But if you think like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in 5 or 10 years, I just leave it by day. No, that's not a good answer, right? So remember, you have to make a plan in this case, right? Because again, when it comes to the scholarship itself, they're actually looking for a candidate that will bring something when they return home. For example, if Danny is given a scholarship in journalism, for example, they expect him to become a better journalist for, let's say, his institution or for his country, right? So they will not give scholarship to a random person. Like, why do I have to give scholarship to this person, right? So this is exactly, try to think about what's your plan in the next 5 or 10 or 20 years, right? So this is again, this is a question to see whether this person has a plan or not. This one, why did you choose this university or college? Okay, so this question can be a little bit tricky because I once tried to interview one of my students for exercise, and then she said that I choose this university because it has a beautiful building. No, that's not a good answer, right? When to answer this question, what the thing that you have to do is like, you have to make research about that, right? For example, why did you choose the Australian National University, right? If maybe your answer can be like, oh, this is one of the best universities in Australia when it comes to blah, blah, blah. For example, it has produced great research, for example, it is well accredited, it belongs to top 8, for example, it has a, for example, it has graduates who now work at government, for example. So do your research why this university is good, not in terms of the building, not in terms of the location, not because, well, why do you choose the university? Because it is a prestigious. Yeah, how? I mean, how? What makes it prestigious, for example, right? It is accredited. It is well acknowledged by scholars. So do your research, right? One of the most important things, if you want to be successful, if you want to be a successful student, if you want to be a successful candidate or anything, research, right? Come on, we live in a Google era. We have Google like on our smartphone, right? So Google everything, right? Okay, this university, this city, and this major, blah blah blah. So when you go inside, when you go inside the room, you have all those informations already, right? So you know why you can convince them. Okay, so why should you be the one to receive this scholarship? This is important. Why? For example, you have to be proud. For example, well, because I'm a qualified candidate, I have blah blah blah. Because so again, you have to think. Why do you think you stand out? Why do you think you are special, right? So again, this is a good time. This is the right time for you to be a snob in a good way. What I'm saying, like snob here, like you have to sell yourself because I'm a qualified candidate. I'm a hardworking person. If I get a scholarship, for example, I can be a better journalist and I can contribute for for a better relation between Indonesia and Australia, blah, blah, blah. So try to be like that, right? Try to think about the glorious thing about yourself, right? Because this this question is actually will mostly be asked during the interview. Okay, so those are the common question that that are usually asked during the interview. But bear in mind, these are just the common question. You have to be ready for any question. You have to be ready for any predictable question. So the key is that you have to anticipate all the questions, right? As I said earlier, the language, the content, and the psychological aspect, and do not ever memorize. So you can actually ask your friends about that have been in interview. So they'll probably like give you some example of question, or like, oh really, they asked you this question or that question. So there's no limit. They can ask you a question. They can ask you any question. Although I heard that there are guidelines for the interviewers to ask question, but in reality it's very fluid. It's very flexible, right? So those are the sample questions of the interviewer. So now I'm going to give you some useful phrases. For example, like, what do you do at the office, for example, or what do you do at the organization? So you can say like, I'm responsible for, I'm tasked for, my duties include, I'm in charge of, for example, my responsibilities are, or one of the jobs is, in my daily job, I blah, blah. So these are just some of many useful phrases, because again, they will investigate you. So they will ask you so many questions about you, about your job, about your study. So these are just some example of the phrases that might be useful for you. Okay. Now, short sentence. What I'm saying is like this. There are differences between speaking and writing, right? If some of you are quite familiar with English writing, if you are a writer, for example, you are aware that in English, the questions can be really long, right? Not can be really long. Some of the question can be long because English has complex sentences, compound sentences, right? So it can be a long sentence. But remember, if you speak in English, if you are asking, if you are answering question in English, the interview question in English, you have to speak in short sentences, right? Don't speak too long. So, you break the sentences. Or, for example, tell me about yourself. Hi, my name is blah, 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 period. I live in blah, blah, short, something like that. So it's always, you can, something you don't have to, although, meanwhile, those are written English. So learn about the differences between oral English and written English, right? In the interview itself, it's all about spoken English because, as I said earlier, you're gonna talk to the interviewers. It's an oral communication. Okay, so in English, if you're stuck, for example, if you don't know some the question or some of the things that you're going to say, or if you're totally go blank, for example, in English, we know there's a term called fillers, right? So it's like, something. So try by saying that, you try to remember, I think, like, I mean, okay, basically, but don't say, a lot, right? So filler is actually important for you if you're stuck, if your mind goes blank, for example, like, in my opinion, democracy in Indonesia is something that has been growing well, but something like that, right? So those are fillers, right? So this is different with spoken, with written English. You cannot use those fillers, but interview, people can be nervous. Some people can definitely be nervous. Because we are so nervous, because we are under pressure, for example. Sometimes we forget, right? We forget what we're going to talk about. So those fillers, in my case, for example, they can actually be helpful, right? So to sort of retrieve the information. So those are the fillers. Now, let's talk about non-technical aspects during the interview. So what is it? Eye contact. Now, this is a cultural problem. If you, among Indonesian people, especially people from Java or for West Java, for example, some of us are not used to eye contact, right? Because in our culture, in some of our culture, making eye contact is rude, right? For example, if you talk to your mom, sometimes you don't see her in the eyes, right? Sometimes you are, if you talk to your boss, for example, sometimes you're too nervous, you don't see them in the eyes. Remember, in English or in English speaking cultures, eye contact is important. If you don't look people in the eyes, they're gonna see you as rude, right? So this, it might sound trivial, but if you are in the interview, for example, and then they ask you a question, look them in the eyes, right? Don't look down, for example, or don't look up to the ceiling. Talk to them in the eyes, right? Gesture is important, right? Just like, hands, but don't sit like a robot, right? Okay, or don't just something like that, right? So gesture is like, when you explain something, you can use your gesture. I don't have to teach you, right? So if you notice some people when they speak, like me, for example, I speak with gesture because that's important. Gesture is like to show that you know what you're talking about. Gesture is actually to convince them that that you're enthusiastic in the interview. Okay, volume of voice. Okay, don't speak too loud. Okay, and don't speak too low, right? So if you think that I have a soft spot, I have a soft voice, for example, sometimes I speak very 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 my voice is too low, for example. So try to work on that, right? Because I mean, I know some students who speak very soft, but remember, I mean, if you think that that's your problem, right, just work on that. Because again, you have to speak. I'm not saying you don't have to speak loud, but you speak audibly, terdengar, something like that. So moderate volume, right? Because audibility. So it has something to do with audibility. If you can answer the questions well, if you are prepared, for example, what's the point if they cannot hear you well, right? So this is exactly, audibility is important. Intonation and pause, for example. Stop, breathe, okay, something like that. I think I agree with that, for example. I think so, not something like, so you're not a robot, you're a human being, talk with intonation and pause, right? But it's different with accent. Yeah, some people or some students always bother with accent. Sir, I can speak with a good accent. No, please do not ever be bothered by accent, right? Accent is something that's not important. You can, as I said earlier, you can speak English perfectly well with Indonesian accent. That's completely okay. Even with Japanese accent, even our president speak English with Japanese accent. That's completely okay, right? So do not ever be bothered with accent, but intonation, yes. Pause, yes. For example, intonation is something like that. I think so. I agree with that. For example, this is very important. For example, this is absolutely important. That's what I'm saying by intonation. The stress, something like that, and the pause. For example, if you have to explain a lot of things, well, first, for example, there are some of the things that I need to explain to you. First, pause, right? I think this is important because now, well, second, so they have time to digest your answer, intonation and pause. Okay, so eye contact once again, talk to them in the eye, gesture. Don't sit like a robot. You can use your hand, but don't overdo that, of course. Volume of voice. Don't speak too loud. Don't speak too low. Moderate. If you think that you have a soft voice, work on that. Audibility, okay, intonation and pose, right? Make some poses, and then you have to, if you know that there's something that you have to stress, do that, okay? Now, this one, have someone else interview you, okay? This is what I always encourage my student. What I'm saying is like, if you have like, for example, two weeks to prepare for the interview, if you have a friend or a trusted friend, your family, your brother, your sister, whoever, so try to practice with them, right? Let them ask you any question. Let them ask you let them ask you any random question. See how we can answer those questions. So Britzone, this one is also a good opportunity because you have friends, so you can partner with a friend. Okay, give me 20 questions, for example. So by doing that, you can be prepared to answer any questions. Okay, so one of the best practices for you for the interview is like, again, as I said earlier, have someone else, your friend, to interview. Be on time. I'm not saying be on time. Come early, right? Do not ever risk yourself. Do not ever risk your efforts just because you are stuck in market. No, if I can suggest you, just be 1 hour before the day, 1 hour before the time. For example, if your interview is like 2 p.m., I would be there at 1 or 12:30 p.m. That's okay. You can relax yourself. You can relax, for example. You can pray, for example, right? So especially if you live in Jakarta, everything is actually unpredictable. Okay, wear an appropriate and comfortable dress. Maybe you raise your eyebrow. Is it really important? It is very important. If, for example, if you wear a dress or attire that makes you feel so hot, for example, if you don't feel comfortable with the dress, how can you speak well? How can you concentrate on answering the question, right? For example, in my case, I wear batik because I feel comfortable wearing batik. So if you think that you can, a certain dress makes you feel comfortable, do that, right? For example, don't wear a suit don't wear a suit. It's very hot. No, don't force yourself, right? Or maybe for girls, you know what's your the dress that makes you feel comfortable, right? Remember, it's gonna be 1 hour. Can you imagine that if you don't feel something comfortable during that 1 hour, right? It's a small thing, but it does matter. Know yourself well. What I'm saying is like this. This is actually related to one of this question, right? What is your greatest strength? What is your greatest weakness? So know yourself. This is a good time to reflect. What the best qualities that you have? What is your hobby? Ask yourself a question. Maybe some of us, like in your age, for example, you're maybe 20 or 30. Maybe like it's been a while. It's been a long time since someone else asked you, cita-citamu apa sih? Mungkin udah lama nggak. Nobody asked you a question like that, right? So now go back to those periods of time of asking yourself those questions. What is your hobby? Okay, what is my hobby? Okay, what is your greatest strength? So this is about knowing yourself. Because why? Because those things are maybe because again I told you for people, especially in my age, for example, in 30, somebody in their 30s or 20s, late 20s, maybe it's been a while. Nobody asked you cita-citanya apa? What's your hobby? So this is a time for you to know yourself again, right? By asking those simple questions. Yeah, greatest strength, greatest weakness, hobby, passion, dream, whatever. Okay. Be conscious of your behavior. Of course, I told you earlier, like psychological aspects psychological barriers can actually become a problem in the interview. So control yourself, right? If you think that maybe when you're nervous, you always like play with the pen, for example, right? Or if you are nervous and then sometimes maybe you play, you drumming, something like that, right? So try to control that, and then okay, I know that when I get nervous, I usually do this, right? So by knowing that, by being conscious of your behavior, so you can control yourself. Okay, the last one, ask back a few questions. Okay, you might wonder, what can we ask the question to the interviews? Yes, we can. Usually at the end of the interview session, they will ask you, okay, any questions or something like this. So that's okay, any questions. So for example, I wonder, what if your question was that do you think that? That's okay, because again, they're human beings, right? They're not robots, they're not computers. Sometimes it's okay to ask, so-called silly question like, so do you think Sydney is a good place? Because again, you're talking to humans, right? So ask back a few questions, something like that. Or maybe we can say, I'm sorry, sir, if I am mistaken, your question was something like that. So again, right? So there will be opportunities for them to ask you question, maybe. So if if you're prepared for that, so maybe you can answer good questions, something like that. So do not think that it's all about them asking you question, but sometimes they give you opportunities to ask question. Okay. So once again, so those are the important aspect that you have to remember that you have to bear in mind during the interview. So let me summarize once again about the most important things that you have to prepare for the interview. Okay, so there are actually three major problems that you have to prepare, that you have to face during the interview: the language, yeah, the content, and the psychological aspect. Okay, once again, the language is important, but that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is like the content, once again, right? So, okay, you gotta be in English, okay, high level of language, okay, it's gotta be question, not all, it's gotta be complex questions, okay, and you gotta be asked by native speakers. The language, be prepared. If you have like 1 year or 2 years, maybe you have to practice your English, especially in listening and speaking, right? But this is not the only one. Once again, this is not the only one, right? So when you prepare for the interview, remember, as I said earlier, the content, right? Know your subject, know your field, know your major, stuff like that. They will ask you questions and impress them with your knowledge, something like that. The content, okay? And of course, psychological aspect, right? You are a human being who gets nervous, under pressure, blah, blah, blah. So you have to, be ready for that, okay? So good preparation is actually the key for that, right? And then, so this one, common question, right? Tell me about yourself, greatest strength, great weakness, and then leadership. This one is where do you see yourself? Maybe this is a question that can be tricky for some people. So try to answer this question: where do you see yourself in 5, 10, or 20 years? Your plan for the future. Okay. Okay, and then this one, why do you choose this university? Remember, the answer has to be logical. The answer has to be academic, right? Okay, and this one, short sentence. Okay, short sentences. Divide the question. Don't speak in very long sentences. Okay, don't speak in complex sentences. Okay, and then this one, eye contact. Look them in the eyes, right? Don't look down and don't look up to the ceiling. Gesture. Okay, use appropriate gesture. Volume of voice, don't speak too loud, don't speak too low, too soft. And then intonation and pose, right? So try to give some stress on that, and okay, and then don't be bothered about accent, okay, and then practice. Now this is so if I can suggest you guys about the Britzone, maybe you can have a session for you to start pairing, right? Interviews, right? So you are ready to answer any question, to answer any random question, okay? Be on time. You live in Jakarta, you live in a city that is so ridden with traffic jam, right? So 2 hours or one hour is a must, okay? Well, dress well, appropriate dress, okay? And know yourself well again, so try to know yourself again. Try to ask simple things that you used to have as a child, okay? Be conscious of your behavior as well. If you're nervous, and then when you're nervous, you do this, at least you acknowledge them and find a solution to stop doing things you're nervous. And then last one is aspect a few questions, right? So guys, those are the things that I can share with you. Of course, you can find more, some other important tips or on the internet, but these are the things that I have collected so far, based in my experience and based in my experience as a teacher for my colleagues who apply for the interview, right? So this is not the standardized truth of the interview. These are the things that I have been doing, and I hope you can apply them. Okay, so that's it for me, and so you can reach me here at the email and social media and LinkedIn. So now I leave it back to Danny. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wow, thank you. Give applause for Bang Ersan, guys. Wow, it's a really great material. So yeah, you can follow Bang Ersan Instagram, Ersan Pamungkas, ya. So if you have a questions in other thing. Okay, so no, it's a really opportunity for all of you guys. If you have a questions, please raise your hand. Yeah, please raise your hand if you have a questions. And yeah, for our member on YouTube channels, yeah, for our member on YouTube channels, if you have a question, please write down on YouTube comment and I deliver to our conductor tonight. So okay, so first question from Dewi Sophia. Hello, Dewi Sophia.
Hello.
Okay,
Thank-
so yeah, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. How
Okay,
about
wow.
you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you, Dewi Sophia. Okay, please directly asking with Bang Ersan, please.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity and thank you, Mas Ersan,
Yeah.
for the insightful material today. Actually, okay, first, honestly, I already passed the first and the second stage. So I already in the third stage, which is interview, and I have difficulty at that time about to choose about the priority because of they are asking questions which are unpredictable, and they are asking about the strength of in my organization. Can you choose which one to like give me like I already write some of my strength in my paper, but at that time they want me to only choose one, so I get confused at that time because it was unpredictable. And then how can I convince my professor if I get the scholarship? At that time, I haven't get the scholarship, so how can I convince my professor? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So you mean you have to choose one?
Yes, miss. At that
Choose,
time, yes.
sorry, choose what? One of those what? Sorry.
The strength in my leadership organization,
Ah, okay.
because I've been like from my high school and from my college, from my bachelor degree, I already get that experience. So
Okay.
when they ask me, I get confused.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know. Thank you, Dewi Sophia. Yeah, yeah. This is a problem when this is a problem that is actually quite common when you write a form or when you are in interview, right? What I'm saying by common is like, you know, in our yeah, when you're 20 or 30 and you have experience, right? You can tell a lot of things about yourself. Like let's say the greatest strength, right? Maybe you can say I'm motivated. I have a good leader, right? So this is a problem with this is a common problem. So my key adalah try to detach yourself. For example, let me give you an example. When you write a form, for example, they will limit your answer to just 300 words, right? So if you have to choose, for example, a lot of the strength, and then you feel that you have a lot of things. So try to be disciplined in just choosing one and try to focus on that, right? So this is exactly why. And then there's a correlation between the form and the interview. So when you go inside the room, for example, interview, if you are prepared with those questions and with the form, so you know that you know what to focus, right? Remember, the interview is just 1 hour. 1 hour might feel long, but trust me, it can be really short, right? So they won't ask you too many questions. Just choose one, right? So this is exactly why this is where I always encourage my student, not only about the strength, the weaknesses, but also try to, for example, if you have so many tasks and responsibilities in your office, say 10, for example, just write one or two, right? So focus on that. The strength, choose one. The weakness, choose one, for example. And then the hobbies, you have 10 hobbies, for example. you don't have to tell them 10 hobbies, just choose one to one, right? So this is what I call try to detach, right? Try to discipline in choosing what matters, in choosing what is the most important thing, right? So maybe next time, if you have time, for example, in like based on the question that I give you, so just choose one or two. So focus on that, right? One greater strength, one weakness, and then two hobbies, and maybe explain why you love those hobbies and stuff like that, right? So this is about discipline, about because again, the interview process, it's a short time, right? It's just 1 hour. So I hope that answer your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Bang Ersan. Dewi Sophia, give a question again, or that's all?
Actually,
Okay.
I already in my second question about
Okay.
how to convince the professor, my professor.
So what? Sorry.
Professor.
Yeah. How to what?
So in a doctorate, when I want to apply for a
Got
doctorate,
LOA.
yeah, actually not an LOE, but in doctorate, I have to get the professor first for my dissertation.
Yeah, yeah.
Different from my postgraduate. So I have to get the professor first before I apply. I can apply for a scholarship. So
Exactly.
how do I convince my professor?
Okay, so convincing the professor is actually a different thing with the interview, right? Because I know that when you apply for PhD scholarship, for example, in Australian award, right? The most important thing is actually not the interview itself, but how you make a proposal to the professor, okay, and then they are ready to become your supervisor. So this is actually not related to the interview itself, but it's actually about your research, your research proposal, right? So well, maybe this is it has nothing to do with the interview itself, but then but maybe you have to, you have to talk to them, right? For example, let me give you an example, a research subject that is actually has not been researched and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Bang Ersan, and
Thank
also
you.
thank you, Dewi Sophia, for your questions. Okay, next we have Tia. Hello, Tia. Tia, hello.
Hi, I'm here. Hi,
Okay,
sorry.
camera,
Okay, yeah, I've got two questions. First of all, thanks so much, Ersan, for all the tips.
Sure.
My first question is going back to your point on content. You mentioned about the importance of knowing your field. So to what extent are you expected to really know your stuff, and also at which point will they sort of like, in a way, like excuse you from not knowing it? Because at the end of the day, like if you're going from undergrad to postgrad, there are things that you might not know about. And I mean, the reason why you're doing you're applying for a master's program is so that you know more about your field. So at which point will they be able to be like, okay, that's not really something that you're expected to know at this level, if that makes sense.
Sure. That's it?
Yeah, that's the first question.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, there's no limit to the extent of how can we know about our fields, right? For example, if you want to apply in legal, for example, in law study, for example, in law, for example, or in let's say political sciences, of course, it's impossible to know every single thing, right? It's impossible to know every single detail. But of course, I mean, there if you're lucky enough, I mean, not really lucky. If you're lucky enough, so there will be you are asked by people who are from different knowledge, different background. For example, in my case, right, I applied for linguistic at the time, and those two interviewers actually they don't have any linguistic background, right? They don't have any linguistic, so they ask me questions and they learn a lot from my explanation, right? But some of my colleagues, they major in let's say political sciences, right? And those some of them were interviewed by something like that, right? Those are political activists and stuff like that. So it is a challenge, of course, but from the way you explain to them, from the way you, let's say, the latest development of politics, for example, about legal problems in Indonesia, they will assess you based on that, right? And remember, I don't think they'll be asking questions about theories, about, for example, about something scientific. This is actually not a thesis defense them, right? But okay, does they can know that, for example, okay, this guy is actually a legal, for example, this guy knows his stuff, for example, right? So it's not about like, I'm sorry, I don't know about that, for example, right? That's the first one. Second one, based on my friend confession, like she applied for the interview, and she had the interview about 2 years ago before the elections, right? She applied as a she applied in political sciences. Of course, they will be asking you they answer, the latest development about politics in Indonesia, about the election. They didn't ask her about, let's say, the independence for struggle, for example, about the reformasi movement. There's nothing. So if I can make some sort of bottom line, it's all about whether you are aware of your surrounding, whether you are aware of the latest development in your field. Exactly. Like, for example, let's say this is an era of, let's say, social media, right? So when you talk about politics, they will always connect with social media. This is an era of, for example, this is an era of pandemic, for example. I guess, there's a great chance of a question related to the pandemic, even if you talk about law, for example. So back to your question, I don't think there's no certain limit, and I can tell with the exact limits of how well do we know about our field. But I believe that if you think that you're if you think that you keep updated about the latest development in your fields, I don't think you have nothing to worry. I don't think you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much. And my second question is actually more of a clarifying question. When you were talking about some scenarios of interviews, you gave an example of like questions about politics and democracy. So this is just to clarify, did those examples only come from your own personal experience, or is that also something that, even if we're not in politics, so for instance, I'm in the health field, mental health field. So would I be expected to also answer questions related to socio-political climate and things along those lines?
No. Of course, I mean, if you're, let's say, you majors in health, for example, it's all about it would just be related to your field, right? My point is that, like, there will be follow-up questions with the latest development, right? So it won't be too technical question, because usually they have some sort of guideline about the points that they will ask you, but then I don't think like they will ask too many questions about, like, the technical details about your field, for example, right? I cannot figure out like what the question that will be they will raise in your case, for example. But in my field, if I can give an example, I'm a translator. They don't ask me about how do you translate, no, but they will ask me like, what's your role as a translator, something like that, and how do you, for example, how can you contribute as a translator for the government, something like that, right? And then, do you think that the latest, for example, do you think that for example, I just remember the problem of Indonesian literacy rate has something to do with the translation? I said yes. Why? Because most of the books are in English, right? So we need translator to translate the book, something like that. So again, it won't be too technical, but I believe that they will always relate to the latest development, to the latest happening, something like that. Especially now, COVID-19. I think mental health is a hot button issue, so you have to be prepared for that, especially related to COVID-19. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bang Ersan. Okay, just 2 questions, yeah, guys, because our time is limited. Okay, next question from Saskia. Hello, Saskia.
Hello.
Okay, Saskia, please, your questions.
All right, so my question is like things that you said before. Questions like, what will you do for the next 5 years later or after graduated?
Mm-hmm.
So you said that we have to sell ourselves in front of the interviewer.
Of course.
Yeah. Is that the interviewer or the university is demand your words after you graduating?
So okay. About the plan, you mean?
Yeah, the plan that we say at the interview.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to use my case again because I speak based on my experience again. So they let's say when a country when institution gives you scholarship, they expect you to do something more than okay, you graduate and that's it, right? So this is why there are there are what is called target recipients, right? So usually target recipients are government institution officers, NGO, those working for the NGO, for example, disabled or women, right? And then there's a reason for that, right? For example, if you work for the NGO, we work for the government, and then you get the scholarship, so they expect you to go back to the country and work for the government or the NGOs, so to do something better, than to contribute more to that, right? So if you're an individual, for example, if you're a person that, and then you don't work for any organization, I have to tell you that it can be a little bit challenging for you to get the interview, right? Because you need an institution, you need an agency, for example. Why? Because they want to know, like, okay, you get the interview, and then so what? For example, you get the scholarship. We give you like $1,000 to study there, for example, and then what can you do that, right? So this is exactly why you need to have a plan. Okay. For example, in my case, for example, I work for the government. I'm a translator. And then I tell them, I convince them that because we need better translator for the government, because Indonesia needs more translators. So by studying, for example, by doing major in translation, blah blah blah, and then when I return, I can be a better or more professional translator, and blah blah blah. I said to them. So I hope that I can contribute to a better relation between Indonesia and other countries, for example. So this is exactly why you need to have a plan. Like, okay, after you graduate, and then what are you gonna do? What do you expect, for example, right? It's not a business, and don't say things like, when I return home, for example, when I graduate, I hope I can speak better English. No, it's not about that, for example. So, for example, when I return, for example, I hope I can become not really a better, for example, I hope I can serve my country better, for example, by becoming a better translator, for example, something like that. I hope I can make a sharper analysis and something like that. So make a plan. Why, for example, what are you doing now? For example, where do you study? What do you do now? And what do you want to study? What major do you want to choose? And after that, what do you hope you can contribute after that? So contribution is actually the key, right? It's not about being yourself. So it's not about contributing to become a better yourself. It's all about giving better contribution for your country, your organization, or your community. So that's what I mean. So it has nothing to do with the university. It's actually with the with the AS, for example. The interview process has nothing to do with the universities, actually.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Saskia, and also Bang Ersan. Okay, next we have Irham. Hello, Irham.
Yes, thank you, Dani.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I have two questions. My first question is, I want to ask about your opinion. If there is an interviewer asked about like this, which one is the most important in your life, energy or time? Do you think I should answer both of them, or I have to just choose one of them? And my second question is, would you like to share to us, based on your experience, the most difficult question you face during your interview? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irham. Okay, sure. Being in an interview, you have to be honest, right? It's not, honesty is the best policy, of course. I mean, you have to be honest in answering the questions, right? Including, for example, the first question, which one is actually more important. Just be honest. If you think that energy and time with you, which one do you think is more important for you? I mean, if you feel like energy is more important for you, then just say that, right? So don't lie. That's what I can say. Just don't lie, right? Be yourself, right? Because again, it is from those answers, it is from your answers, from your answer that they will actually assess you or evaluate you as a candidate, right? So the question is more important. Of course, you have to choose one, right? So the key is like you have to really understand the question, right? So listening comprehension is important. So that's why I said earlier that the English skills that are important, that are crucial in the interview is like listening and speaking, right? So listen well. From your question, it's clear that it's more important. You have to choose one, right? And you have to choose one based on your preference. The second one, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Would you like to ask? I mean, sorry. Would you like to share to us about, based on your experience, the most difficult question you face during you interview? Thank you.
I mean, that should be the last one, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I think this is quite easy to answer, right? So which one is do you think is more important? The most difficult? Just tell them, right? Just tell them. It's not that it's I don't think this is the time for you to to pretend, to play pretend, or maybe just to for example, just sorry, to be honest, for example, your first question about this was so important, was so difficult for me. Why, blah blah blah. So something like it's all about. If I can conclude, if I can summarize my question, my answer to your question, it's all about be yourself, right? It's all about be yourself, right? If you think that this is difficult, say that it is difficult. It is more important that it's more difficult. There's no like they won't judge you based on your answer, but they will judge you whether you can explain to them or whether you're honest or not, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Irham and also Bang Ersan. Okay, because our time is limit, guys. So just one questions.
Sure.
Okay, just one questions. Okay, next, we have Rafli. Hello, Rafli. Yeah,
Hello,
please.
Only one question, Mas.
Yeah, yeah.
One question, but two questions. Okay, one question. Okay, thank you, Ersan.
Yeah, thank you.
For the extraordinary knowledge that I want to ask is if we are asked about our weaknesses, do we also have to explain how we handle our weaknesses or not, or we just say our weakness is like this, and okay, and without how we handle our weaknesses?
Sure. That's a very good question. I should have mentioned that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, the key is relevance, right? If they ask you what is your greatest weakness, just say what is it, right? But then again, remember, I said earlier, like there's a big chance they will ask you, they will give you follow-up question. For example, you say, what is your greatest weakness? Do you think, for example, I say, I'm lazy. Let's say I'm lazy. They will just say, oh, okay. No, they will not stop that, right? They will ask you, so how do you solve that, for example? So if you are lazy, how can you do all the assignments at university, something like that? So they will ask follow-up question, right? But don't say like, I'm lazy, but no, don't add that question. Don't add that, right? Because I'm sure they will ask you more questions than that, right? So be relevant. Okay, the point is like, remember when they ask you something, stick to the question, right? Don't go too far from that, right? Don't try to impress them by beating around the bush, right? Something like that. Remember, they will ask you more questions about
that. Okay.
Thank you, Mas Ersan.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Irfan. And next question from Eva. Hello, Kak Eva. Hello, Kak Eva. Are you here? Okay. Yeah, okay, next. Rafli. Okay, Sofiahan. Hello, Sofiahan.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Is it clear? My voice is clear there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hello, Bang Ersan, Kak
Hello,
Dani.
Sophia.
So, I have a question.
Sure.
In case we don't have a friends that can can practice. We can practice with a friend. What is the best way to practice for the interview session, for the scholarship or for job interviewing? Because in my based on my experience, I don't have really friend that brave to speak English directly to me before I joined the Britzone. So what is the best way for me before I join the Britzone to practice the interview?
Okay.
So that's my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you have Britzone, right? So problem solved. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, now you can maybe you guys can start arranging this session, that session, right? To start pairing up and then exercise an interview. But just in case, let's pretend like 2 years ago when you didn't know about this community, for example. This is what I did. First of all, talk to yourself. It sounds crazy, but this is exactly what I did. How I improved my English at the time. I talk to myself sometimes. For example, I talk about this and that, and that helped a lot, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing, you can start with what is it? The pieces of paper with those questions. So you have to write any questions, and then you write them in small pieces of paper, and then put them in a box, for example, and just choose some of them randomly and see if they can answer those questions, right? So just write any random question. It's all about whether you can anticipate any question, something like that, right? And the third one, I don't think this is a problem anymore, because this is we live in the era in the internet, right? So you don't have to meet person or something like that. You don't have to meet person in live. You can talk with Zoom or WeChat, or WhatsApp video, for example, something like that, right? So now you have so many. Let's say you have so many ways for you to talk to each other without meeting in person. But there's one thing I need you to remember, right? Interview, once again, is something of, as I said earlier, it is a very high level of English, right? So if you really want to prepare for the interview, and then for example, you're not used to speaking English, you don't feel comfortable to speak English, and then on the day of the interview, you go inside the room, how can you speak so well, right? So it's a long process, right? So this is what I said, how can you try to make English as actually part of your daily conversation, right? So that when you go inside the interview, you are used to that, right? But then if you never ever speak English and then you go inside the interview, do you think you're going to be successful? No, right? So exactly. So the the preparation is a long one, for example. So this one, for example, small things like, for example, when you make photo sessions on the Instagram, when you chat with your friend in English. So it's all about how you make yourself a part of your life. So how you make English as a part of your life, right? We never learn Bahasa Indonesia. We never learn Japanese, right? We know how to speak the two languages, right? So this is exactly what you have to do, right? Start small thing like talking to your friend, chatting with your friend in English, something like that. So on the day of the interview, you are used to that, right? Jadi nggak bisa, that's impossible if you learn the night before the interview. Okay, I have to speak English. I have to learn to speak English on the day before the interview, and then miraculously, and there's a miracle, tomorrow you can speak English fluently. That's impossible, right? So it's a long process.
Okay, thank you, Bang Ersan. Yeah, Sophia, don't forget to join our Britzone class every week. 3 classes if you want to improve your English. Thank you, Sophia, and also Bang Ersan. Okay, the last question for tonight is Kak Eva.
Hello. Hello, Bang Ersan.
Hello.
Hello. Well, actually, I also from UPI Bandung, English Language and Literature.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Kang, last year I had a scholarship interview with KKS Scholarship, and unfortunately I failed.
That's okay. Don't say fail.
Yeah, but I still tried to. Yes.
You didn't make it yet. Okay.
Yes, I didn't make it yet, and I'm curious that is it possible for me to ask back to the interviewers like what aspect do you look for in an application?
Mm-hmm. I mean, you ask the interviewers at the end of the interview?
Yes.
Okay. That's it?
Yes, that's it.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate. I mean, I'm not sure. I cannot answer your questions for sure, but I don't think that's an appropriate one because it seems like you are intrusive. You know, you really want to know whether I'm accepted or not, right? So what I'm saying by asking the question again is like it's a discussion. You know, at the end of the day, interview is all about discussion. You know, so
Yes.
thing like that. So I don't think that's the question that you can. That question you made earlier. It's
Yes.
appropriate for you to ask the interviewers, but something like that. Yeah, my opinions. When I had the interview, I one of the interviewers said that like how do you get homesick, for example, right?
Yes.
I told you that. I said like, well, I can call my mom, I can call my brother and sister, something like that. And I said like, how about you? Like, so it's something like that, you know. So
Okay.
something like discussion, right? It's not about asking you question like, am I accepted or not, or no, or do you think I have the qualities that you're looking for? No, don't ask that question.
Because because I applied for Korean government scholarship, so I'm quite difficult to answer how to handle the language barrier.
Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't think that my question last year was satisfied enough about how to handle the language barrier.
Oh, okay. So you think that you couldn't satisfy you couldn't answer the question well about the language barrier?
Yes, I thought so.
Okay, so and then you asked them back?
Yes.
Okay, I think for that one that's okay because it's a technical one, right? So maybe you can ask them for your opinion about the language barrier in Korea, for example. But I thought you were asking about like the qualities or whether I'm accepted or not, something like that. Because those are things, they're within their authority to keep them confidential, right? But if the question like, do you think that there's a better way to learn Korean, for example? I think that's okay.
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 Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Eva, Nurul. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for all the questions. So if you have an additional question, you can direct message Bang Ersan via Instagram. And okay, so next sessions we have Kahoot games. Hello, Putri.
Yay! Thank you so much, Danny. Wow, I'm so excited. But today, the one who will deliver the Kahoot game is Nada. Hello, Nada.
Hi.
Now it's your turn to provide us some quizzes.
Okay, so I already share my screen. Have you seen that?
Yes, I can see that. Come on, guys.
Back sound audible for you?
Yes, it's audible.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so we have 6 people here now. Come on.
Come on, guys. Let's check our understanding by playing this Wednesday fun quiz.
Yes.
Yeah, so the game pin is 1742521.
Wow, we have Aldebaran. Actually, I'm not into Sinetron, but this name is quite famous now, so I think, I can figure it out. Okay, Dewa Kulkas. Wow.
Okay.
We have a lot of unique name here, like Pangeran Malam. Oh, okay. So we have Dewa Kipas and also Dewa Kulkas here. Cool. Come on. We also have the host of this Kahoot game. His or her name is Kahoot. Wow, Britzone fan! Wow.
Oh my God, that's so kind.
Yes. 19 people. Should we start now? Padadang. Okay.
Let's wait a little bit more. Come on, guys.
Maybe
Let's join our game.
minutes. We will wait for 2 more minutes.
2 more minutes. That's perfect.
Come on, come on. Okay. Welcome. By the way, this Dungan and Drago, I think he or she wanna write dragon, but the letters limit is kinda limit him or her to write the complete name. Wait. Where is the Wakulkas? Oh, I see. He's back. We have.
I don't understand, Nada. I don't understand why somebody's used Dewa Kulkas as his or her name.
Actually, I also don't know, but maybe that Kulkas is cooler than kipas can give. So yeah,
I see.
maybe he or she wish that
That's
they can
it.
get the
That's the possible reason, I think.
Yeah. Is that you,
Is that
Shita?
you?
I mean,
No.
come on.
Okay, one more
But
waiting
the
for you.
nickname is quite, yeah, let's check.
Quite unique.
Because kipas, kulkas is cooler than kipas. That's it. Good.
Yes. We don't know. We
That's
never
acceptable.
know. Okay.
Alright.
At 38, I think we can start now.
Yeah.
Okay, so get ready, guys. So today's quiz is related to our topic today. And the first question is, here are the steps you can take to prepare compose impressive answers during the interview, except practice, do your best, be clear and concise, join dancing class 3 weeks before the interview. I believe Kaputri will join this dancing classes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it helps me to answer the interview.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. We got it right. 15 people answered it right. Next. Wow, Kahoot is leading.
Oh my God, Kahoot.
I think he or she is using kind of cheat because the name is the same as the quiz.
Don't you dare.
I think she works for Kahoot.
It's mine.
Okay, second question. I told myself in, I told myself out. The sentence is similar in meaning with I convince myself, then I don't. I told to myself, that, and then I don't. I join a conversation, then I leave. I think to myself, then I stop thinking.
Oh, it's kind of tricky, Nada.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
6 people answer it wrong, but 9 got it right.
Wow.
So actually, I told myself in, I told myself out is I convince myself, but then I don't feel that I am confessing enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you for the knowledge, Nada.
You're welcome. Wow, Pangeran Malam is leading.
Oh my God.
It's fun to see Dewa Kipas in the second place.
Congrats, Dewi Kipas.
Dewa.
Oh, Dewa. Sorry.
The third question is, you'll come out of nowhere and into my life. What does this sentence mean? You will appear and then disappear, just like my ex. Like, you'll leave to go somewhere in my life. You'll come into my life, then leave. You'll randomly appear into my life. Wow, most people still got it right. That's cool.
They're so awesome.
Yes, but I believe this 3 person has experience
with their ex. Yeah?
Yes.
It's based on their personal story.
Yes, exactly. Wow, Dewa Kipas is leading.
Wow, Dewa Kipas.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
He can't beat the Grandmaster, but he can beat us here. Wow, cool. True or false question? Influence is one of strong words you can use to punch up your scholarship application, and restraint is the antonym of it. Is it true or false? Is restraint an antonym for influence? Come on, 19 answers, 20, and wow, cool. Most people still get it right. I'm actually waiting for another tricky questions. Wow, the Lucky Pass is still leading. And Salah has the highest answer streak of 4. Wow, congratulations. Moving on, the last quiz. Who is our
last question
for today?
Wow, who is our conductor? I don't think it's the first one. They're not inspiring, I think.
Oh my god. That's yeah.
they're hilarious, not inspiring. Oh, that's our boss.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's Bang Ersan.
Yeah, cool. But I believe this one that answered the right one is the president itself or the vice president.
We're so sorry, president.
Wow, Britzone fan in the 3rd place, Sela in second place, and the first winner is Dewa Kipas. Wow!
Congratulations, Dewa Kipas.
Wow, cool. Thank you so much for joining our Wednesday fun quiz session, guys.
Okay, thank you Putri and also Nada. And once again, congratulations for Dewa Kipas. Dewa Kipas, raise your hand, please.
Reveal yourself, please, Dewa Kipas.
Dewa Kipas. Yeah. Okay, thank you Putri and Nada for these sessions. Okay, so the last session for tonight. Please, Bang Ersan, give short conclusions for our member tonight.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Yeah, okay, so conclusion. It's kind of hard for me to conclude everything, but maybe what I can tell is that it's a long process, right? I mean, the scholarships, the scholarship application is a long process, right? And as I said earlier, the interview is actually the most important process, right? So maybe if I can tell one thing, like there's no shortcut, there's no simple way for you to actually conquer the interview to get the interview. It's because it's a complex process. It's a really frustrating process. It's a demanding process, right? In English, the content and everything, right? So what you're doing now, if you are aiming to get a scholarship and to be successful interview, what you are doing now by speaking English like this, small things in English, simple by saying simple things in English and answering questions in English is all part of the plan for that, right? It's all part of the plan. As I said earlier, you cannot make the preparation the night before the interview, right? So if you want to be successful in interview, even if you speak well, if you want to be good at the content, start from now, right? So start for small things. Start from speaking English every day, if possible. Start by reading a lot, okay? And start by trying to be more mature in terms of controlling your emotions, something like that. So it's a long process, but it's not impossible for you to be successful at the interview. I think that's what I can say. Good luck.
Okay, wow. Give applause for Bang Ersan, for our conductor, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bang Ersan. Thank you so much for your time. It's your material is really great. Okay, again, guys, if you have additional questions, you can follow Bang Ersan Instagram, Ersan Pamungkas on Instagram. So that's all for tonight. And next, we have photo sessions. Yeah.
Okay.
Putri.
Thank you, Danny. All right, so I would recommend everyone to turn on your camera, because I'm sure you guys want to look fabulous on our Instagram. I'm sure you do. All right, come on, guys, turn on your camera because this is such a memorable event for us. Please turn on your camera. We want to see your beautiful and handsome faces. That's awesome. All right. Okay, come on, Sena, Budi, Novika, Ernest, Rahmat, Saskia. Let's turn on your camera and let's get to know each other better. Wow, love the background, Sena, Budi. Novika as well. Don't be shy. We would like to see you. All right, so I will count 1 until 3 and show your best pose. Oh my God, that's so scary, Tra. All right, 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Show your best smile. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ersan. Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mr.
Thank you, Kak
Thank
Ersan and
you.
Thank you
everyone.
everyone. Thank you Kak Ersan.
Thank you,
See you next
See you.
everyone. See
Bye.
ya.
Saturday.
Bye.
Don't forget to fill the feedback form on the
Bye.
WhatsApp
Yeah.
group.
I'll make
Thank
sure with
you.
this.
Okay, see
Bye
you.
now.
See you. See you, Sophia. Thank you